Hello, hello. Welcome to a new episode of the Leading Yourself podcast. Last week, I shared with you my mid-year check-in process. I hope that you've catch up with last week's podcast episode. If you haven't, I really recommend that you listen to that podcast episode. Now, last week, we reflected on how the year is going. We review how we're going towards achieving our goals. Are we in track or not? And then we refresh our commitments and we refocus our energy and our actions so we can accomplish our 2021 goals. Today, I want to talk about and share with you some tips on how you can double up your progress towards those goals in the next 90 days. I'm sure if you did a mid-year check-in process similar or following the one that I shared last week, you have now some momentum. You have some energy. You're motivated to get on track with your goals and pursue your goals in the next 6 months. So today, I'm going to give you more tools so you can leverage that momentum and that energy that you created through that mid-year check-in. So again, you can double up on your progress in the next 90 days. Welcome to the Leading Yourself podcast. This is your host, Carolina de Arriba. I'm an HR professional, health and fitness coach, wife, mom, and above all things, a goal-getter. In this podcast, we're going to be digging into all things leadership, professional and career development, habits, and relationships. This is a podcast for those who want to become the best version of themselves. Those who have big dreams and are willing to embrace the journey and put in the work to achieve them. My goal is to share with you the tools, tips, and tricks to help you in your journey. So let's dig into today's episode. The key question is, how can you double up your progress without doubling up the hours that you're working in your goals? How can you make your dreams come true faster? And most importantly, how can you do it all without compromising your health, your sanity, or your happiness along the way? And that's what I want to talk about today. Last week, we went through my mid-year check-in process. I really hope that you found that helpful. I hope that you found the time to do a mid-year check-in yourself. So you could reflect so far on how the year is going and review your goals, reconnect with your goals, and refresh your commitments and really refocus your energy and your actions so you can be on track to achieving your goals by the end of the year. Or maybe your goals have changed and you discovered that through that process. And as I was saying on the introduction, when we do a mid-year check-in, if you have done it, you probably have felt this burst of energy and this momentum, right? That comes with reconnecting with your goals and recommitting to your goals. And now what I really want to do is give you more tools on how you can double up your progress without doubling up the amount of hours that you have to put in to achieve your goals. That you can find that balance between making progress and creating momentum without sacrificing your health, your sanity, and your happiness in the process. Because if you are sacrificing those things, personally, I think that is not worth it. So first, I want to start with the two biggest enemies that you have right now. The two things that are holding you back from doubling up your progress. And those are discouragement, and distractions. I think that discouragement and distractions are the main reason why you have slowed down your progress. If you have slowed down your progress. And this is very common and it happens to everyone, right? We start the year, we set new year intentions, we set new year goals, we have this big momentum, this big energy, and we go all in, and then we get tired and we get discouraged because we don't see the progress happening as fast as we would hope it was happening. And as soon as we start getting discouraged, then we start slowing down because in our minds, we're questioning if it's worth it, or we're questioning our ability to really pursue those dreams or achieve those goals. And then the other big thing that I've talked many times in the podcast before is distractions. Like, we live in a world today that is so connected, and we are tied to our phones all day, and we get distracted all the time. And every time that we get distracted, every time that your phone rings or vibrates because you have whatever kind of notification, or you have a new email, and you have that pop up on your computer telling you that you have a new message. Once we lose concentration and focus in what we're doing, it takes about 20 minutes to get back to that deep focus. So I've done previous podcast episode talking specifically about focus, and I've shared some of my tips on how I stay in that focus space. But really, what I want to touch in today and talk about is the fact that these really are the two things that most likely are slowing you down. And I want to talk about how and what are some ways that you can get through that discouragement and those distractions, and really how can you stay focused and you can stay in that momentum and continue to grow that momentum so you can double up your progress. And then I'm going to get very tactical about my 90-day planning process, and we'll get more into those details. So there are 4 things that you can do if you want to double up your progress in the next 90 days. The first thing is reconnect with your why. This is so important so you can show up as your best, to be a role model, to be on your A game. Why is this important to you? Why these goals are important to you? Why are you even pursuing them? What meaning do they have in your life? What would it mean if you would achieve these goals? And I think that reconnecting with your why should be the first thing that you do right after this mid-year check-in. And a question that can help you reflect also on this is not only what is your why, and question why are you doing what you're doing, or what you're doing is important, but also a lot of times, I shared this before, we are more accountable to others than we are to ourselves. So when I talk about showing up as your best self and being a role model and being in your A game, ask yourself, who needs you to be a role model? Who needs you to show up as your best self? Who needs you to be in your A game? Might be your family, might be your team at work, might be a community that you're part of. But really thinking not only why is important to you, but also who needs you to show up as your best self can really help you to refocus on your goals and create more momentum, because that's what we're really going after, creating momentum. Momentum is what is going to help you double up your progress. The second thing is double down on the things that are working for you. There might be things that are not longer working out for you, right? We talked about routines and how to know when it's time to reshape your routines and disrupt your routines. But there might be things that are really working for you. What are those things that are really, really working for you right now? And double down on those things. Focus on those things. They are working. So keep doing it. And not only keep doing it, but focus even more on those things, because when you do more of the things that are working for you, that creates energy that drives momentum. The second thing is, or the third thing, sorry, is focus on identity. I've talked about this concept of identity before. A lot of times, I share there's 3 levels of change, right? We start by just focusing on our goals, and that creates some structure, creates direction. I truly believe in setting goals. But I don't think that just by setting goals, you're going to be able to make the type of change that you really need and you're looking for in your life. The second level of change is focusing on systems, on habits, on routines. And we talked about routines many times in this podcast. In episode 4, I share my morning routine. A couple of episodes away, we talked about disrupting your routines and how to know when it's time to disrupt your routines and what to do to disrupt your routines. I've talked about how to form habits. I had some friends over on the podcast and we talked about Atomic Habits, one of my favorite books on habits, right? And habits are going to take you to the next level, but they're not enough still. There's an even higher level, which is the identity. And that is you answering the question of who do you need to become in order to live the life that you're looking for, right? We set goals because we want to feel a certain way. It's not about the goal itself, but it's about how we feel or what we think or how we're going to feel when we achieve that goal. And if your goal is, let's say, to run a 5K or a half marathon or a full marathon this year, just to put an example, if you set that goal and then you run that 5K or you run that half marathon, the next day you have no reason to put on your running shoes and go running because you've already accomplished your goal, right? So this ultimate level of change is when you focus on your identity. Who do I need to become if I want to run a marathon? It's not about running a marathon or a 5K or a 10K or whatever it is. It's about becoming a runner. And when you become a runner, then everything is so much more clear. The routines that you need to implement are so much more clear because now you're thinking as a runner, what would a runner do? And you build your routines based on that identity. And your goals are going to be very clear to you. And it's going to be easier to set smarter goals because now you know exactly who you want to become. And the fourth thing is to get clarity and stay focused. Clarity is key. If we want to keep that momentum, we want that momentum to move in the direction that we're heading, right? We want that momentum to move us towards our personal vision and our goals because momentum can drive you in any direction. And if you're not clear in what direction you're going, momentum can take you in the total opposite direction. So having clarity provides you direction, and then staying focused keeps you on the way to that vision and those goals. When it comes to achieving clarity and staying focused, I want to share with you my 90-day planning process. This is now very tactical, and this is what I do every 90 days to stay on track, to keep the momentum going, and to help me double up on my progress. At the beginning of this year, in the very first episode of the podcast this year, the very first episode of season 3 of the Leading Yourself podcast, that was episode 47, I shared with you my annual planning process. I share with you very step by step how I set a vision for the year, how I do my annual plan, and then the fact that after my annual plan, I work on 90-day increments, and then I have my monthly planning and weekly planning and daily planning. Today, I really want to get into this 90-day plan because I think this is going to enable you, again, to double up on your progress in the next 90 days and take advantage of that momentum that is starting after that mid-year check-in. So I mentioned that if you want to double up on your progress, the first thing that you need to do is to reconnect with your why. It's important that you know your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why is this important to you? And it's important that you look at your vision on a regular basis. And that is something that I do daily. You don't have to do it daily, but connecting with that why, connecting with that vision It's really what is going to keep you on track and not giving up. Because a lot of times when we do this annual plan, we visualize this straight path, this straight line to the finish line, right? And we believe that the road is going to be perfect. That's the way we visualize it. And the truth is that the road is never a perfect straight line road to that finish line. We're going to have setbacks on the way, and there's going to be detours that we're going to take, and there's going to be bumps on the road, and we're going to fall, and we're going to have to stand back up and continue walking and exploring new paths in order to get to that final destination. Which means that because that road is not perfect as we visualize it, probably is going to take us a little bit longer to get to that finish line than what we envisioned. And I share with you that discouragement is one of the main reasons why you slow down in your progress. We feel discouraged, and then we start to taking the foot off the pedal, right? Off the gas. So reconnecting with your why, reconnecting with your vision, revisualizing that can really start to create that momentum. And that's something that we kind of did with this mid-year checking. So now that you have reconnected with your goals, that you're clear on why they're important to you, let's talk about the next 90 days and the 3 key components of your 90-day plan. So the first thing is that once you're very clear on your vision, once you have reconnected with your goals, maybe you had to tweak your goals because things have changed and goals should not be static, right? We know more today that we knew January 1st. We have experienced certain things in the last 6 months that might have us decide to take a different path. So once you have reconnected with your goals, revisit your goals, now let's break them down. What are 3 things that you really want to accomplish in the next 90 days? Basically, what we're doing is breaking down those goals that we set for the end of the year into smaller chunks because we can get easily overwhelmed with these annual goals. And we can again get discouraged because we're not making as much progress as we thought we would in the short term. We tend to underestimate what we can do in one day and overestimate what we can accomplish in a year. And therefore, it's important that we break those goals down into smaller chunks. So I want you to look in the next 3 months. So that's July, August, and September. So by the end of September, what are 3 things that you want to accomplish that are going to get you a step closer to your end year goal? And then once again, we're going to reconnect with our why. Like this is going to come up over and over again because it's important that we keep our why front and center. And then last, we're going to identify the task that we need to complete in the next 30, 60, and 90-day increments in order to achieve those goals that we want to achieve by the end of September or by the end of the 90 days, right? So I do this exercise, this 3-step exercise every quarter. So at the beginning of the quarter, I reconnect with my annual vision. I reconnect with my annual goals. If I need to make changes to my annual goals, I change them. It's okay to change your annual goals. And then I identify what are 3 goals that I want to accomplish in the next 3 months that are going to take me a step closer to my goal. Goals that I can really accomplish in 3 months. They still need to challenge me. They still need to push me out of my comfort zone, but they need to be realistic in a period of 3 months. I reconnect with why they're important to me, and then I list the tasks that I need to do or complete in the next 30, 60, and 90-day increments to take me to that goal. And by breaking that down in 30-day increments, then it's it's closer to my reach, right? Are things that I can actually accomplish and not these grandiose goals that I feel overwhelmed with and easily discouraged when I feel that I'm not making as much progress as I think I should be making. Because once again, we tend to underestimate what we can do in one day and overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year. That's why it's so important that we break our goals down, because if we feel that we're making progress, that sense of accomplishment is going to give us fulfillment and is going to create more momentum. And it's like a snowball that grows and grows and grows and creates more and more and more momentum. And as we create more momentum, we're able to double up our progress because now we have clarity, we have direction, and we're able to focus on the next step. Instead of looking to the finish line that might be miles away, we're just looking at the very next step that we need to take that is getting us in the right direction to ultimately reach that finish line. So when I do my 30, 60, and 90-day plan, really what I'm doing is looking for a very specific actions. I really look for things that are really, really tangible. And I do it both on my personal goals as well as in my career goals. I think, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the year on that podcast episode when I talk about my annual plan, it's important that you have goals in all areas of your life. Because a lot of times when we talk about goals, we narrow focus those on our career or our business, right? And we forget about some of the personal sides of our life and some of the other roles that we play in our life. So it's important that in that 90-day goal setting, in that 90-day planning, you're really focused on both. And sometimes when I said you're going to identify 3 goals, you can break it down and do 3 goals in your career or business life and 3 goals in your personal life. In that, if that helps you have a more holistic view of all the different roles that you play in your life. And then it's very important that you get very, very specific on what are those actions, by when you're going to do those actions, right? And make sure that you build time in your schedule during the next 90 days on a regular basis so you can work on those tasks that you have identified for the next 30, 60, and 90 days. Okay, those are my tips to help you double up your progress on the next 90 days. If you found this podcast helpful, if you like today's content, please head to Apple Podcasts and leave me a review. While you're there, make sure that you subscribe so you get notifications of new upcoming episodes. And finally, if you can think of anyone who can benefit from today's content, please make sure you share the link with them. Now, I hope you have an amazing week, and I will see you here again next week for a new episode of the Leading Yourself podcast.